There's no way you would work. Madam Mayor, members of the council, before we begin this evening's meeting, there has been duly advertised a public hearing regarding the acquisition by the Hook and Ladder Company of the Second Ward of a Kenco fire and rescue truck. This is to be done through tax-exempt financing through Laurel Leasing Company. It's a lease purchase. Under the Internal Revenue Code, in order to have that purchase accomplished by tax-exempt financing, a public hearing is required. As I said, it's been duly advertised. And at this time, if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to offer comment upon the tax-exempt financing of the acquisition of this fire truck, they would have an opportunity to do so. I might add, there is a resolution coming up under the fire department this evening for this particular item. And secondly, I would add that this is no cost to the city itself. We are not obligated for any of the payments. None of our assets are utilized to secure the payments. The payments will be made entirely by the Hook and Ladder Company of the Second Ward. So without further ado, if anyone in the audience wishes to offer comment or ask a question regarding this financing, please step to the microphone. Madam Mayor, noting there has not been a great rush to the microphone, I would suggest that this public hearing be closed.
Public hearing. All right, now I'd like to call to order the September 12th meeting. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please have a roll call.
Mr. Giovanangelo?
Here.
Mr. Jim?
Here.
Mrs. Wolford?
Here.
Mr. Scapora?
Here.
Mr. Molinari? Mr. Forish?
Here.
Mayor Griffin?
Present.
6 present.
You on your way? No.
All right, at this time I would like to read a proclamation from Mayor and City Council. Usually stand, but it's kind of hard with these mics, so. All right, the proclamation from the City of Latrobe. Whereas our nation's first responders are the local firefighters, paramedics, police officers, and search and rescue workers, who are the first ones into an emergency and the last ones out. And whereas these brave men and women work under the most extreme conditions to protect our communities and risk their own lives to save others, providing the first crucial line of defense in our homeland security. And whereas nowhere was the courage of first responders most evident than on September 11th, 2001, when emergency personnel rushed into danger after the horrific attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the fields outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, in the fleeting hope of searching and finding anyone who needed their help. And whereas September 11th was yet another painful reminder that the hazards of the job are sometimes just too great, forcing these selfless individuals to make the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And whereas 10 years after that infamous day, our appreciation for the first responders in Latrobe and throughout the nation has only deepened as we realize how fortunate we are to have these genuine heroes walking in our midst. And whereas for the physically and emotionally demanding jobs they perform tirelessly each day so that we can continue to live our lives, first responders are deserving of our unending gratitude and profound respect. Now therefore, it is proclaimed by the mayor and council of the city of Latrobe that the Latrobe City Council recognizes the service and sacrifice of our emergency services personnel. Adopted this 12th day of September 2011. Thank you. I would like to introduce Pastor Twig of Bethany United Methodist Church. Oh, Pastor, sorry, he's the chaplain of our fire department, sorry.
I'll ask you that we would pause for a moment of silence, and then I will lead the prayer. Most holy and everlasting God, it is our honor to give thanks for those who serve this nation and community as first responders. This evening we recall those who have served in previous days in the fire departments, police departments, as paramedics and in search and rescue on behalf of our communities. Especially, we are grateful for those who have laid down their lives to save the lives of others, and who have willingly put themselves in harm's way to provide safety for the citizens of this land. During this time of remembrance of 9/11, we recall with sadness the many brave men and women who were lost in the vicious and devastating attacks in Washington, D.C., New York City, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We are reminded of your Son's words that greater love is not seen than that life is willingly laid down for friends. And now, our God, we also would petition you for those first responders who labor to protect and serve Latrobe and the United States of America. Bless the men and women who are the police officers, the firefighters, the search and rescue workers, the paramedics. We pray that you would grant safety as they go forth to fulfill their duties, that you would fill them with wisdom as they minister to the needs of the public, which too often overlooks the dangers they face and takes these workers for granted because these men and women serve so faithfully. Give peace and a sense of satisfaction as they accomplish their tasks and then return home. And our final petition, O God, is that the public will be wise in their own choices and actions, thus creating fewer crises in their own lives and that of our community. These things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Would first responders please stand? Thanks, Ed. Thank you, Pastor Twig. Ready? All right. We have approval of minutes, please.
I move the minutes of the August 8th and August 29th, 2011 meetings be approved and accepted and be permitted to remain on the Secretary's desk where they will be available for reading and inspection to anyone.
All right, Mrs. Wolford, do we have a second?
Madam Mayor, I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We have approval of department reports and paid bills.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mrs. Wolford, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Lepore? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now it's our time for citizens' requests. Anybody like to speak? Give you 5 minutes. Sandy. Nobody wants bodies getting moving? Have to try. All right, committee reports. Mrs. Wolfer, please.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I understand from the manager that he will be meeting with Ellen Keefe, and then subsequently we're going to attempt to meet with the prospective garbage haulers. And hopefully that's all going to take place next week, but we'll see how the time schedule goes. Thank you.
Sounds great.
We do have authority to bid it, by the way.
Right. Okay, fine. Any board authority reports? Marty?
We're having a special meeting on Thursday this week, the 15th at 4:30. We've received 3 bids for the parking garage. We'll be discussing those, and I don't know if they'll be awarded at that time, but there will be much discussion over these 3 bids.
Yeah, that's the parking authority.
Yes.
Are those bids privileged? Can we hear what they are? They were advertised as 3 bids.
CPS out of Pittsburgh.
Excuse me, I think I've been handing it, so go ahead.
I think you have a report up there.
Okay.
All but the irrevocable letter of credit was $5.3,076,000. Carl Walker was $2,746,700,000. $3,503,500 for Nathan contract. So right now the low bid is Carl Walker 2.7, which includes the elevator of $80,000. So that's our low bidder right now.
How many floors is that?
They removed the top floor.
That's how many spaces?
Well, we had like 249, and the top floor was not really utilized that much, so we'll probably end up with 200.
Marty, I thought the alternate bid was removing the top floor. The top bid I thought.
Yeah, the alternate bid, you're right.
So the numbers you gave us were not for removal, because the removal was more expensive.
Removal is very much more expensive.
So there's no removal, Richard. That's for everything.
5.1 through the removal.
No, but it's not to be rebuilt. I guess that's my question.
If this bid would be the top floor to be redone, 2.7.
All right, thank you.
All right, Charlie's not here. Department reports. I'll do fire department this time first. John Priscilla.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you, and members of council. Alex, our new city manager. It's a great recognition tonight that you did for us. It's great to serve a community as great as Latrobe. These guys are very dedicated, and they do appreciate the acknowledgement. They do take a lot of time away from family and away from home to provide the service, but they do it with pride, and we do really appreciate the recognition of what you bestowed upon us this evening. Don't know if anybody knows, they probably do. We had 5 members of our water rescue team last week, went out east to the Harrisburg area to assist with rescuing, I believe, Willie, 25 plus rescues? Yes. Pardon?
Yes.
Yes. They were in time of need. We got called from the region 13, which is sorry about that. But these individuals also took time away from their jobs, their families, and put their lives on the line to help others, which is an unselfish act, no matter what you look at. That's what we're about. That's what we're here for. And the people of Latrobe as taxpayers, you deserve the right to have our services, and that's what we provide to you. But the 5 guys that went was one of my assistant chiefs, Willie Walters, stand up as I mention you. Chris Lehman, he's captain down in number 2 here. I don't think Rick Kunkel's here, he's from number 5. Matt Bilo's from number 5. And Tim Dalton is from number 2. I don't believe he's here either. But these 5 individuals went along with other members from Bradenville, New Ellick, and Lloydsville. And they all band together to help a community in need down there. So I think they deserve a nice round of applause. And once again, I would just like to thank Mayor and members of council for the recognition. We do strongly appreciate it, and we do take pride in community service. So once again, thanks.
Thank you. Chief Boone.
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of council, city manager, on behalf of the police department, I would also like to thank you for the recognition. It is with great pride that we serve the city of Latrobe, and we are very proud to be part of this community and to keep the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Bush.
Nothing, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, we're ready.
Madam Mayor, members of council, before we proceed, I would ask if council would be amenable to amending the agenda to include an item that is not here. It will come up as item number 5 under Administration and Finance, and that would be a resolution to increase the hourly rate of our fire police. We would first need a motion to amend the agenda.
I move we amend the agenda to include that motion.
Mrs. Wolford, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Scapora, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
That will appear then as item 5. It'll be a resolution under Administration and Finance. The first item of business appears under the Public Works Department, and it is a request by the Seton Hill Daycare for off-site directional signs. I have a resolution, and the motion would be to adopt the resolution as read. The resolution reads, authorizing approval of directional signs for Seton Hill Child Care Services, Inc. Now therefore be it resolved, Section 1, Council of the City of Latrobe hereby authorizes and approves the installation of 4 directional signs, the dimensions of which shall conform to the provisions of the Latrobe zoning ordinance, which states that such signs shall not exceed 18 inches by 24 inches in area. And the council approves the location of the 4 signs as follows. 1 at the intersection of Main and Jefferson Street, facing in a southeasterly direction. 1 sign at the alley after the Napa Auto Parts store and before the Valley Dairy Restaurant, facing north. 1 sign located at the intersection of Ligonier and Chestnut Street, facing south. 1 sign on a telephone pole at 213 Chestnut Street, facing west. Section 2, the precise location of the directional signs shall be approved by the Director of Public Works and shall conform to our zoning ordinance. The signs shall also conform to any regulations of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation if applicable. Section 3, that these signs shall be installed pursuant to the direction of the Director of Public Works and shall be maintained and insured by the applicant, and should the signs in the future pose any hazard or impediment to the health, safety, or welfare of our citizens, the sign shall be removed within 30 days upon written notice by the city. And Section 4, that the mayor, city manager, city secretary, Director of Public Works, and any other proper city officer are hereby authorized to take any and all action and to carry into effect the provisions of this resolution. Resolved in council of the state, the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Wolford, second.
I'll second that.
Mr. Giovanangelo. Any questions or discussions?
Madam Mayor.
Joe?
Mr. Kelly, we are not permitted to put signs on the telephone poles in downtown. So what we can do is put a street post sign up very close to that pole.
At whose expense, Mr. Bush?
They will purchase the signs and pay for any material signs, and we will provide the labor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the staff has discussed this proposal particularly, and in general, this, what we've done in the past, which are, as Mr. Bush has just outlined, the businesses provide the signs and then Public Works, when they're properly located, installs them, which is quite a generous service when you consider what PennDOT might have you do on Route 30. There's a concern that if this practice continues, we could quite literally clutter our downtown and confuse motorists instead of enhancing or helping the motorists find certain business locations. With that in mind, the council may want to consider tabling this. It may want to consider approving 2 of the 3 remaining signs, or it may want to consider at this time not passing the resolution, again, for further consideration of what the policy may want to be going forward in the future. Each decision made, as you well know, is precedent setting.
I'll take my second back.
What?
You want to table?
You can remove your second, you can remove the motion.
Okay.
But if you do wish to consider this, you ought to table it. And if you don't intend to consider it until a long time in the future, then you can remove your
Madam Mayor, I would move that we continue the motion, table the motion. Table the motion.
That requires a second.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
All right, Mr.
Non-debatable. Non-debatable. Just vote.
All right, for the vote, all in favor?
We're voting in order to table the motion,
Okay, all right.
the previous motion. It's a motion.
All right,
You don't have
all in favor of the table?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, table this motion.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the next item is a resolution. It is entitled Approving and Ratifying Change Order to the 2011 Paving Contract with Tresco Paving Corporation, whereas pursuant to Resolution 2011-36, the city accepted the bid and awarded a paving contract to Tresco Paving Corporation for the 2011 street paving project, the contract not to exceed $176,204.50. And whereas the city now desires to authorize a change order to this contract to include the paving of an alley extending from Jefferson Street on the east to Harding Street on the west between the parking lot areas for Gino's Restaurant situated in the first ward of the city of Latrobe. Now therefore, it resolves section 1 that the council of the city of Latrobe does hereby approve change order number 1 to the contract entered into with Tresco Paving Corporation for the 2011 street paving program, authorizing the paving of a portion of an alley extending from Jefferson Street on the east, Harding Street on the west, between the parking lot areas for Gino's Restaurant, situate in the first ward of the city of Latrobe, for a total additional payment based on unit prices not to exceed $25,650. In section 4, that the council of the city of Latrobe does hereby ratify any and all actions taken by the city manager to implement change order number 1. Further, the council of the city of Latrobe hereby authorizes the mayor, city manager, city secretary, and any other proper city officer to sign any and all documents and take any and all actions necessary to carry into effect change order number 1 and the resolution. Resolved in council of this date, the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DiVinangelo, second.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Forsh, any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Sephora.
This additional amount for this paving is coming from the Railroad Street sale?
That is correct. And actually, I believe the figure will probably be lower than the $26,650 that was allocated to paving it. But I don't have that figure yet from the city engineer.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2011-43. Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mr. Scapora?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mr. Forge?
Yes.
Mr. DiVinangelo?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, we now move to the Administration and Finance Department. And the first item here is a resolution. The resolution is entitled Approving Contract for the Office of City Manager and Director of Planning and Development. Whereas by resolution number 2011, the Council of the City of Latrobe hired Alexander J. Graziani to the Office of City Manager, Director of Planning and Development, Director of the Tax Revenue Department. Whereas said resolution provided that the Council of the City of Latrobe will approve the contract of the newly hired City Manager on or before Monday, September 12, 2011. And whereas a contract in the form attached here to as Exhibit A has been reviewed both by the City and Graziani, and the City now desires to approve said contract. Now therefore be it resolved, Section 1, that the contract for Alexander J. Graziani as City Manager, Director of Planning and Development, and Director of the Tax Revenue Department, as well as and for any and all other offices or duties of the City Manager in the form attached here to as Exhibit A, being the same as hereby approved. Section 2, the Mayor and the City Secretary being hereby authorized and directed to sign on behalf of the City the contract document attached here to as Exhibit A, and to take any and all action necessary to carry into effect the within resolution and the contract set forth herein resolved in the Council of this date, and attached to the resolution is the contract. The motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Giovanangelo, second.
I'll second that.
Mr. Scafora. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Jim?
Madam Mayor, I noticed that the contract has certain areas in gray, and I'm not sure I understand whether that's putting something in or taking something out.
That was just the most recent changes to the wording in it, and that was just for your benefit. Their original contracts won't have the gray areas in it, the ones that Mr. Kelly has.
So that's part of the contract, the gray area.
Right, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, Mark.
This is resolution 2011-44. Mr. Scafora.
Yes.
Mr. Forish.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next item is a resolution entitled Approving Agreement with the Westmoreland County Transit Authority. Now therefore be it resolved, Section 1, that the agreement covering the rural and urban mass transit service between the Westmoreland County Transit Authority and the City of Latrobe for the fiscal period ending June 30, 2012, calling for a total contribution from the City of Latrobe in the amount of $870, being the same as hereby approved. And Section 2, that the Mayor, City Manager, and the Secretary of the City of Latrobe and any other proper city officer are hereby authorized and directed to sign the agreement in multiple counterparts and to submit signed copies of the agreement to the Westmoreland County Transit Authority, and to do every other act required to carry into effect this resolution and the agreement approved hereby, including but not limited to the disbursement of funds in accordance with the terms of the agreement hereby approved. Resolved in council this date, and the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor. I might add that the increase this year, I think, was $35 from last year.
We have a motion.
I'll make that motion, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Forish, second.
That's the agreement.
I'll second.
Mr. Scafora. Any questions or discussion? Okay, Barb.
This is resolution 2011-45. Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo.
Yes.
Mr. Forish.
Yes.
Mr. Scafora.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Madam Mayor, as a member of the board of the Westmoreland County Transit Authority, I abstain.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 5 yes, 1 abstain.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Wolford.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, the next item is also a resolution entitled Approval of Administrative Services Agreement with Highmark Health Insurance Company for administration services for employee benefit plan. Now therefore be resolved, Section 1, that the City of Latrobe does hereby authorize and approve entering into an administrative services agreement between Highmark Health Insurance Company and the City of Latrobe for administration of certain employee benefits for the City of Latrobe pursuant to the provisions of the Administrative Services Agreement. attached here to is Exhibit A in Section 2, that the council does hereby authorize the mayor, city manager, city secretary, and any other proper city officer to sign the administrative services agreement attached here to is Exhibit A, and to execute any and all other documents and take any and all other action necessary to carry into effect this resolution and the administrative services agreement authorized and approved herein. Resolved in council this date, the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
Have a motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DiVincenzo, second.
I'll second the
Mrs.
motion.
Wolford? Questions, discussion?
Madam Mayor, is this the company that we had before us last year? And it was discussed a decrease, or is it the same? What is it? I wonder if the manager can tell us what this contract is all about. I mean, is it the same as last year, or?
This is not, was it CD Tracy?
CD Tracy.
Tracy, this is not Highmark.
So what is this?
How much is it?
For some reason, my packet didn't have the specifics on it, so I'm gonna refer, the administrative agreement that we have. I apologize for.
Barbara Buck, is it cheaper, or?
This has nothing to do with the cost. This is just something, and you got it separate from your packet, but it's basically just Blue Cross's, request for spelling out, I guess, the contract that we have with them. It doesn't really change anything, it's just the agreement with them.
Who pays for it? Who pays for these services?
Well, we pay for our Blue Cross, but it doesn't change any of the cost to
What's the reason for it, do you know? I mean, is this?
It's a requirement. It's a requirement by law, since they are providing certain health benefits, is basically the type of benefits. That they have an administrative services agreement with us. We've had an agreement of this type just going back, I don't know how many years, probably the last 4 or 5 years.
So is this just a renewal of an existing agreement?
Basically, that's it.
It's not CB. It's
No.
not CB
No.
Tracy, it has nothing to do with them.
No.
So it's basically just an administrative function, we just have to renew this agreement yearly? Or just whenever they tell us to?
I didn't have a chance to read this.
It would depend on the length of the contract with the healthcare provider, but if it's an annual contract, then the answer is yes, more than likely we're gonna have to renew it yearly.
The funny thing to me is that our contract, I think, with Highmark runs, July 1st to June 30th. So you'd think that we would have to do this at the same time we renew our,
That is correct.
Contract.
And the contract for this current period will be up June 30th, 2012. And we should, in the spring, start getting quotes about our new, either with this provider or with another one.
is there there's no, is this resolution there's no end date to it? So it ends when if we would not use Highmark anymore, it automatically ends as soon as we would choose another provider?
That's correct. We would have to end up doing an administrative agreement with them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Questions or discussions? Lauren?
This is resolution 2011-46. Mr. Forish,
Yes.
Mr. Scapora,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford,
Yes.
Mr. Jim,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenangelo,
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor and members of council, the next item is also a resolution, and I will read it momentarily. The caption or title is authorizing the city manager to advertise for requests for proposals for a consultant to assist the city in applying for the Department of Community and Economic Development Early Intervention Program, and whereas The early intervention program offered by the Department of Community and Economic Development is intended to assist communities in financial planning and to improvement of a community's financial position through grants for the hiring of a consultant to review the financial aspects of a community and to recommend a long-term plan. And whereas the City of Latrobe desires to undertake a project under the Early Intervention Program and to participate in said program, and whereas the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development makes available grants and aid for such project through the Early Intervention Program. Now therefore, be it resolved, Section 1, that the Council of the City of Latrobe hereby authorizes the city manager to prepare and advertise a request for proposals from qualified consultants to assist the city in applying for the Early Intervention Program. And Section 2, that the mayor, city manager, and any other proper city officer be and are hereby authorized to sign any and all documents and take any and all action necessary to carry into effect this resolution. Resolved in council this day, the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
We have a motion.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Scapora, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Mrs. Wolford. Questions, discussion?
I have a question. This early intervention is for someone to give us a proposal, to take a look at our plan to see if we are going to fall into bad financial planning or to try to help us from falling into. Is that
You can
correct?
see it as a wellness plan like you would for in healthcare. A healthy patient to remain healthy wants to do a checkup from time to time. With a change in administration, with the manager's position, it's most prudent at this time to take a look at that, again, to prevent us going into distress. The state highly encourages healthy municipalities to do this before they get to the point where they need lots of help. The benefit for the community of doing it is twofold. One, we'll have a sound fiscal plan, which we'll have to be able to implement for 5 or more years. It'll give us a 5-year plan. The second is it puts us in a good position for grant funding from the state. It's a little like when your son cuts the grass, you give them the keys for the car on Friday night. And that's the way the state looks at this. You do good, buy them, and then they turn around and recognize you as a higher priority community than others when, all things being equal, seeking out grants.
Have we done this in the past in the city, you know?
No, we have not.
And this is just you're going to put out a request, an RFP, a request for proposal to get people to solicit their services to us at what cost?
The firms will be working for us at this point at no cost. They will help us prepare the grant application. The grant application, if submitted, would require up to possibly 50% match. These studies cost up to $80,000, so that would be about a $40,000 match. However, if we do it right, we will make a hardship case request to them, which I think is possible given the fact that we have some impending expenses, if you will, and the way our budget is, we can make a pretty good case that some of that could be waived. However, if it's not waived, one of the options we'll pursue are to have other partners, if you will, help defer our end of it for the 50% match. So what council's doing tonight is authorizing me to request proposals from firms who would there work with the city to help us get to the point of making application. And then at that time, the council will have another step to authorize making the application, and you'll know at that point exactly what the budget implications would be.
Any other questions?
That answered my question.
Anyone else? Okay. Barb?
This is resolution 2011-47. Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Forge.
Yes.
Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, we are now at new item 5, which was added to the agenda by amendment. It is a resolution, and I will read it, increasing the pay to the fire police by $1.50 per hour. And whereas the fire police who provide various services to the city requested a raise in their hourly rate, whereas the city of Latrobe desires to increase the hourly rate of pay for the fire police who provide these services, now therefore be resolved. Section 1, that the council of the city of Latrobe does hereby authorize and approve $1.50 per hour increase in the hourly rate paid to the fire police who provide services to the city. Section 2, the increase set forth herein is conditioned and contingent upon agreement by the Greater Latrobe School District to share equally the cost of said increase, such that the city shall be responsible for 75 cents per hour and the school district shall be responsible for 75 cents per hour. Section 3, that the increase in pay herein above described shall take effect on the first day of the month following approval of this increase by the Greater Latrobe School District. In Section 4, the mayor, city manager, city secretary, and any other proper city officer are hereby authorized and directed to sign any and all documents and take any and all action necessary to carry into effect the within resolution resolved in council this date, and the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
Do we have a motion?
I'd like to table it out for 30. I'll put a motion on the floor, we table it out for 30 days.
A second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Non-debatable. Motion, you don't need a roll call.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
3-3, motion fails.
Okay, motion failed.
So we're back to the original motion. Yes, we have on the original motion.
Mayor, I'd like to ask a question. What's the current?
We haven't made a motion at all.
Sorry.
You haven't done a motion.
All right, I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mrs. Wolford, second.
I'll say.
Mr. Jim, okay, now.
Now, discussion.
Madam Mayor, my question is, what's the current rate?
$8.50. This is
The new rate.
a $1.50 raise, $10.
Has anyone talked to the school district yet?
The police chief told me that he did, it was his understanding they were gonna go along with it. So it would only be 75 cents to the city and 75 cents for.
Yeah, he told me he's gonna meet with them Wednesday, so it'll be 75 cents for us.
But this motion's
You
also
have a
based only if they approve.
You're gonna meet with them on Wednesday. So if the school district says no, then the motion is out the window.
Right.
When was the last increase we had
2008.
in 3 years?
Can we go to the green room with personnel?
Huh?
Can we go to the green room with personnel issues?
You want an executive session right now?
2 minutes.
All right. I mean, it's up to her.
All right.
Executive session, 2 minutes.
One bid. Carl Walker.
Hey. You're not getting any more money. You're not getting any more money.
I've got all funded in my purse. I'll mess it up. Why don't they share with our damn thing down and park the cars there?
Well, that's what.
What? I know. Reporters, Sandy.
That's the game plan, that's
My meeting's at 8 o'clock here, and I'm probably gonna be here at least an hour.
So bring it down closer to 2
I have a good job coming in on electric. All city buildings. There's some money out there. Upgrading our lighting. Good energy saving. Okay,
So this way. Partner out there, he wasn't a big problem. So.
National Company 1 race on in front of 112, 112 West 2nd Avenue. Assistant police on vehicle accident, no injuries, free on the roadway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, I did. Oh, that would have been better if they won. But that fireworks was so awesome. And they had so much good food. And it was just a good group of people that went. It was fun.
Thanks, Marty.
We were sitting in Pittsburgh on a sidewalk here with tables set out. Never another joke.
All right, everybody. No parking. No parking.
Isn't it?
It's just 112.
You know what's gonna happen with that? Presbyterian Church.
You might be right on that one. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. That's conjecture.
Oh, yeah. That. So listen. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say
wish I had an answer.
All right, we just had an executive session for subcontracting personnel. Now we're gonna go back to our motion. Mrs. Wolford?
I don't make you stay on the vote.
Okay.
This is a resolution, so it's a roll call vote.
Yeah, Barb.
This is resolution 2011-48. Mr. Giovanangelo.
No.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Forge.
No.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Spapora.
No.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
That is 3 yes, 3 no.
The motion fails.
Okay, motion failed.
The next item, Madam Mayor, members of the council, falls under the fire department, and it is related to the public hearing that we had this evening. It is a resolution which I will read approving the application of Hook and Ladder Company of the Second Ward for tax exempt loan for purchase of a fire truck and rescue truck. Whereas pursuant to section 150 of the Internal Revenue Code, a fire department is permitted to seek a tax exempt loan for, among other things, the purchase of a fire and rescue truck, and whereas pursuant to section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, in order to seek a tax exempt loan, the approval of the municipal government, which is serviced by the fire department, is required after public hearing, and whereas reasonable notice of the date, time, and purpose of the public hearing and the regular meeting scheduled to follow the public hearing for the purpose of consideration of the approval of the tax exempt loan was duly advertised in the Latrobe Bulletin, and whereas a public hearing was held on Monday, September 12th, 2011 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers, and no objection to the tax exempt loan was made by any participant at the hearing. Now therefore be it resolved, section 1, that the financing by Hook and Ladder Company of the Second Ward of a lease purchase agreement with Laurel Mountain Leasing and Financial Services for a tax exempt loan not to exceed $256,000 for the purchase of one new Kenco fire and rescue truck being the same as hereby approved. Section 2, that all payments under the above described lease purchase agreement shall be made by and shall be borne solely by the funds of Hook and Ladder Company of the Second Ward. And further, the city of Latrobe shall have no financial obligation or responsibility whatsoever for the payments required under the lease purchase agreement, nor shall non-payment result in a lien upon any asset or revenue of the city. Section 3, the council of the city of Latrobe does hereby authorize the mayor and the city secretary to execute the chief elected official's approval pursuant to section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, and to take any and all action and to execute any and all other documents necessary to carry into effect the within resolution. Section 4, that this resolution shall become effective upon the date of passage. Resolved in council this date, the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Forge, second.
I'll second motion.
Mr. Scapora. Questions, discussions? Questions? Barb?
This is resolution 2011-48. Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo.
Yes.
Mr. Forge.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the last item for action under the police department is a resolution entitled approving purchase of 2 police vehicles. And whereas the council of the city of Latrobe believes it to be necessary to replace 2 of the older police vehicles in the city fleet, and whereas the city has sought quotations for the purchase of 2 police vehicles from various councils of government, and whereas the city has received favorable quotations from the South Hills Area Council of Governments for the purchase of 2 2012 police vehicles, and whereas the city desires to accept the South Hills Area Council of Governments quotation for the purchase of 2 police vehicles, now therefore be it resolved, section 1, the council of the city of Latrobe does hereby approve the quotation submitted by the South Hills Area Council of Governments for the purchase of a 2012 Dodge Charger police vehicle with trade-in of a 2008 Ford Crown Victoria police vehicle for the net purchase price of $19,796, and for the purchase of another 2012 Dodge Charger police vehicle with trade-in of a 2006 Ford Crown Victoria police vehicle for the net purchase price of $20,796. Section 2, the Council of the City of Latrobe hereby authorizes entering into a contract for the purchase of the above described police vehicle. Section 3, that the mayor, city manager, and any other department city officer are hereby authorized to sign any and all documents and take any and all action necessary to carry into effect this resolution and the purchase of the police vehicles here and above described. Resolved in council, to this date, the motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mrs. Wolford, second.
I'll second that.
Mr. Giovanangelo. Any questions or discussion?
Yes,
Mr.
Madam Mayor,
Chair?
what are we getting for the used vehicles? I mean, you're showing a net purchase price. What's the purchase price without the trade-ins?
Chief? Joe?
I've got it here, one moment, please. The one is 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 and 3,000, that's the difference for the trades, 4 and 3. And just to remind council, the proceeds from the 6th Ward playground sale are what's contributing to underwriting this purchase.
Another question, I think we talked about, is it a high lift for the Public Works Department? Is that part of what we're going to use that money for?
Correct, the Public Works Director is working to get a good price and the best deal possible, and that's not before you now, but yes, that would also be included at a future decision or a future meeting.
Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Jim? Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2011-49. Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Forish.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried. Okay, unfinished business?
I have one item, Madam Mayor. When Mr. Sephora and Mr. Baldneri and I were over in 6th Ward, we talked about a street light back in the alley. And I received a call from a resident over there basically stating that Allegheny Power said we had to authorize that. Alex, do you know anything about that? Has anybody contacted you?
Yes, I've been working with the chairman of your planning commission, Ron Weimer. We've discussed that. We had, I don't know if you were out there, Mr. Weimer, with Mr. Jim from Allegheny or West Penn. But yes, we're looking into that, and that is true. We'd have to do an authorization to do that. Of course, we would be assuming another bill.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else for unfinished business?
I have a question for Mr. Bush on this same visit we had over there. We discussed some water issues. I saw the alley got paved, which should have helped some swirl of the water going down through there. Is there any additional plans in the works to try to move the water differently in that area?
Yes, actually, I went over and looked at it upon your suggestion. And I am going to try to put a small curb in there as we did over on the north side to guide the water on down the street to prevent it from going down the alley.
Okay, thank you.
Any other unfinished business? New business? Do they have any new business? Okay, city manager's report?
The city manager's report is presented in your packet. Just a few highlights on it. First of all, I want you to note, as a guide for me, I'm going to be utilizing the comprehensive plan that you've adopted most recently last year, and the vision and mission is an orientation guide for me, just so you know. And that's why you'll see that on the report. But I'll highlight 2012 budget preparations have begun. We're dealing with, again, an issue here with FEMA and certification. Yeah, it looks like this, it's on letterhead, it was turned in with the packet, it wasn't stapled in.
Does it look like Alex?
Yeah, it's not in with the packet.
Right there.
Yours
I
is
got it.
colored.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Because I see them up there looking for it, I thought they want to follow along.
Got it.
Councilman Jim, do you need a copy?
I'm not sure yet.
Here.
On page 1, you'll notice FEMA, the Loyal Hannah Creek levee recertification. As you may realize, there's a levee here protecting the Legion Keener Park. That's to be recertified by September 2012. We had a meeting most recently with our engineer and one of their sub-consultants who does geotech work. I just want to alert council that this is going to be a big item on our agenda, depending on the costs to complete recertification, which will be made by your decision. It would have ramifications. If we don't recertify the levee, some properties may find themselves of having to purchase flood insurance. If we do recertify the levee, they'll stay as is and won't have to purchase flood insurance. Certainly an item that we'll be discussing as time goes on. I'm going to bring it to your attention. Also, as mentioned earlier in a committee report by Councilmember Jim, we are moving forward with the garbage contract, which will expire at the end of January. And one of the things we'll be doing soon, we'll be working to have a pre-bid meeting with haulers for us to be able to express our interest in having a clean city, an urban setting, and try to present to them kind of the case of what they need to know when they're trying to do service in this community. So just stay tuned for that. And just some of the other things you might want to notice on there. I'm certainly available at your discretion at any time to meet or discuss any of these items, and would welcome feedback as that permits. Thank you. Yes.
All right, for my report, I want to, again, thank all the first responders. And we had, the fire department had a memorial service last night, and it was wonderful, and thanks for inviting us. One thing our city manager brought to my attention, it's the Westmoreland Clean Waste 15th Annual. It's the Household Hazardous Waste Collection. It will be Saturday, October 1st, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Valley High School in New Kensington. It's free to county members, and Latrobe is a municipal member sponsor. It is, it's not just personal items. And we'll have copies of this in the office.
These are for items that you wouldn't be able to put on the curb and wouldn't be collected at the transfer station. And this is the best way to get at things like batteries and other kinds of paint that, again, you wouldn't be able to typically dispose of any other way, and it's a free service.
Good service. All right, I don't have anything else. A motion for adjournment? Mr. Stavor, second. Mr. Forrest, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Meeting
Don't they need a dress code?